Welcome to No Tourists Allowed, a podcast where two travel industry executives with a combined 71 years on the inside of travel and technology give up their secrets to do the thing everyone wants to do. Travel better, pay less, and see more of the world. Here are your hosts, Mike Putman and James Ferrara.
Hello, I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara. Welcome to No Tourists Allowed. Mike, did you get that big swag bag of No Tourists Allowed logo items? I know you didn't because we don't have any. But I was thinking that we ought to, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
a
we
big
should.
mug that says No Tourists Allowed, or a
Sweatshirt.
yeah,
a
tote
big
bag.
oversized suitcase for your fans.
and a little tote bag, overnight bag for yours. Yeah. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? You think you would like walking? We came up with a cool design and some cool slogans. I think it could be fun. We're going to have to make a deal with Cafe Press or Vistaprint or somebody and open up a little store. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Well, we're already off to interesting topics today. Mike and I have also been on the road, no surprise. And we were actually together for a change and then also separated a couple of interesting events. Mike, you know, I really want to talk about Arizona, our event together, but you were also in Arizona at another event and a sort of like technology and startup focused event that maybe our travelers are not so familiar with. The industry people who follow us will know about it. Can you share with everyone?
Yeah. So just recently, I got back from another trip to Desert Ridge, which is outside of between Scottsdale and Phoenix, at the JW Marriott, and it was the Focusrite 2024 annual event. And this event really is for C-level travel, typically technology industry folks, and it is crazy expensive. And I think they do that to kind of keep out the middle management folks because it is expensive for 2 days. But it's a great event. They do a wonderful job. They it's well orchestrated. Lots of networking opportunities, lots of educational opportunities, and then there's a component, as James was alluding to, where they share like top startup companies, and there's a voting thing, and the people the startups get some venture capital for the ones that are most that get voted the highest and things of that nature.
Years ago, they actually used to do a codathon as part of the event, right? I mean, this is really insider travel industry stuff, folks. It's not known outside of the business, but within the business, this is where the major investment groups go each year to see what's new, to see who the rising stars are, to see how technology is developing. Really fascinating event. And
met with a lot of bankers there, a lot of people, interested to know what the trends are. A lot of people we've been working with, new partners, existing suppliers, and the Booking.coms of the world, the Expedias of the world. Everybody's there. And a guy named Bob Diener, James, which I know you know the name.
mm-hmm.
And it might, some of our listeners might know, but he started Hotels.com and then sold that to Expedia, the Expedia group. Then after that, he created another company that did something similar called Room something. And at any rate, he sold that company to Priceline for several millions of dollars. And lo and behold, he is back at it again. He's raised from the dead. This guy just keeps reinventing himself. I mean, he's doing the same thing over and over. He builds
serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, and he builds a great distribution aggregator product. Get a Room was what his second organization was, and builds it up, builds up the traffic, builds up supply, and then flips it and sells it. So had the opportunity to have lunch with him. He's certainly one of the great travel distribution guys of all time, and had a nice lunch with him.
I bet you could have done a drinking game and taken a shot every time someone said AI at this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I was at the dinner the first night, and it was a group of investors with another company that we work with. And one of the investors, there were 10 or 12 people at this table, and we were talking. Of course, AI came up, and this guy would say FAI, and he would use the word instead of F, because he said everybody calls everything F and AI, and it's really not. AI's. And this guy's actually has a doctorate, but he was also a very colorful character. So that was kind of the theme of that night, was FAI.
So of all the ideas that you saw and all of the companies and programs and new thinking, tell us one you walked away with saying, hey, that's really neat.
Yeah. So, and you and I have had this conversation, but we haven't had it with our audience, is that the first thing that comes to people's mind when they think of AI is travel planning. And they think, this is going to be the killer application for AI. You're going to talk to a machine, and it's going to develop this complex itinerary for you and give you recommendations. And everybody's kind of chasing that dream, and they have been chasing that dream. And the reality is, it hasn't really proven out so much. I think there are components of what AI can do that can really help benefit it, but it's not like, no one is going, hey, I'm going to use this service to book my travel instead of calling a travel agent or instead of booking it myself. But what has been successful, and there has been a lot of success at, are tools that utilize AI and other technologies that are similar to handle processes that humans used to do in the travel spectrum. So one of the things that my company is doing is we're using AI to call and reconfirm every single hotel booking that we get. So we get tons and tons of hotel bookings, as you can imagine. And we used to have agents. These would be confirmed hotel bookings, but we would have human agents call every hotel and say, hey, I got Susie Lou coming in on the 23rd of March for 2 nights. I want to reconfirm the price. I want to reconfirm their confirmation number, because we just want everything to be frictionless for the traveler. If they get there, they got a room. And if they have any issue, we can go, hey, we talked to, Pedro on November 25th, and he reconfirmed the room. So, but that's a very costly thing to do. And there's very few people doing it, actually. But we were doing it because we were providing we need to provide a little bit higher level service to our members. But we created a way to take AI and to make those phone calls for us and do those reconfirmations. So there's a natural voice that understands natural language. So the AI, we feed it information, it calls the hotel, and it'll say, hey, I'm Mark calling in from Custom Travel Solutions. I want to reconfirm this reservation I have for Susie Lou. And it gets through all the IVR prompts. The person might say, hey, how do you spell that Susie Lou's last name? It'll spell it out. It does all these really cool things, and then encapsulates the information from the agent at the other end to say, hey, this has been a confirmed booking, et cetera, et cetera. So, but like, that's one example of ways to utilize AI that's been very effective. There was another tool that I saw that was really interesting, and it's a collaboration tool. So if you can think of your online and you're planning a vacation, and you have other decision makers in the process. It could be your wife, could be your partner, could be a group of college friends. And you pull down this information that says, here are 3 hotels we're looking to do in Palm Springs. This collaborative tool will allow you to, if the site has it, will allow you to basically share that information in a collaborative tool. And so it kind of makes a session, if you will, for all your friends. And then all you have to do is put in their WhatsApp number, their telephone number, email address, whatever way you want to communicate with them. And then they come back to this. It's basically a web page that says, these are the things that I'm looking at, vote on which one you think's the best, or it just creates this dialogue, which allows for people to collaborate and choose what kind of things they want to do on vacation or what hotels they want to choose or whatever. But it's so sophisticated that even people can put their own credit card numbers in, and the system will understand that and affect the payment that way.
So we're talking Focusrite's name of the event, guys, and we're talking about sort of emerging technologies and emerging companies in the travel industry. Very exciting event. You know, Mike, that together we have developed an AI-based tool. It's another example of what you're talking about, sort of AI used in operations, as opposed to maybe what some people think of like the sexy, forward-facing stuff about, hey, I can book my trip with AI. We're using AI sort of behind the scenes to help travel agents or travel club members take care of certain processes. But we developed something together called Content Concierge, and we're using it for IntelliTravel travel agents to post content on social media, or to write promotional emails, or to create any kind of writing and promotion like that. And the AI helps them write it. You can change the tone. Oh, I want it more promotional, or I want it more price driven, or whatever. And the AI just keeps coming back and refining the content. And then you can edit it yourself and put your final product back into the system, and the system will critique it for you and say, I think it's a little weak on the call to action, or I think you need to change this word or that word to get a stronger reaction. Then you take the whole thing, you actually post it, and then there's even a feedback end of it where you take what you've posted because you think it's good, and you put it back into the system so the system learns what you think is good. So pretty sophisticated stuff made possible just in the last year or two because of these new language models and AI, ChatGPT, you're all familiar with. So another example of ways that AI might be used that aren't so typical and very powerful.
Absolutely. And with that content creator too, you can take one piece of content that you create or that the AI helps you create, and the languaging that you use in Facebook versus Instagram and the formatting and TikTok are, of course, all different. But you can take that same kind of paragraph, it's not the right word, but the same thought or premise of what you're trying to promote, and then the content creator will rewrite it so it's Instagram-ish, Facebook-ish, TikTok-ish, whatever. And then you can easily post it, and it does all that work for you. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of great things coming out with AI, and there's a lot of dogs out there too. I mean, there's a lot of people think, just because I stick AI in front or behind the name of my company, I can go raise a lot of money. And that probably was true early on. But people are kind of seeing through that, through that right now.
So a lot of what you guys may be seeing out there actually is being created by AI. You see it when you even go to Facebook on your own social media accounts or LinkedIn. There are now AI assistants as you start to type things. It's offering to help you with AI. So just one thing to keep in mind is a lot of the content that we're starting to see is AI generated. And you might want to realize that it might make a difference to you in one way or another.
But I was just coming back from the Phoenix area, which we were there just the week before with the executive retreat that we had, and we had that at just a beautiful place that I've never even heard of before.
Well, you went from the JW Marriott, which of course is the top end for Marriott, right? Their luxury product, and I've never been to that particular property, but I'm going to assume that it was very nice.
It is. It's where I met my wife, believe it or not, and got another story behind that.
No kidding.
That is true.
And the week before, you're right, we were together. You were going to talk a little bit about where we were, also in Paradise Valley, right outside of Phoenix. kind of unusual spot.
Yeah, it's this hotel, which I guess I'm not sure you or somebody from
I did. Yep.
from your group found it, but it was a great choice. And the hotel, which is a boutique hotel, 42 casitas or villas, is in the middle of a neighborhood. It's kind of interesting. Like there's no gas stations or fast food places or upscale restaurants or anything. It's like dropped into the middle of a
residential neighborhood.
Right.
Well, that's because it did start as someone's house. It's in the foothills, at the base of the foothills, right outside of Phoenix and Scottsdale. But it started as a private home, a private ranch, actually for a famous artist. And those of you, maybe you know about some of this stuff, there's a famous poster, an illustration of a horse drinking water from a cowboy's hat. And it's called The Last Drop. And it's a famous 1920s, 30s illustration. And the artist who created it, and a lot of other magazine covers and so on, built this house in what was then the desert. It was outside of the city of Phoenix, and now winds up being in the middle of this residential area that's grown up around it.
The guy's name was Alonzo McGargy. And
right.
He went by the name of Lon was his nickname.
Right. So that's the name of the restaurant on the property, Lon's. Apparently, he was a bit of a partier, and back, particularly in Prohibition, they had tunnels and root cellars dug under this house where they would hide out if the sheriff came, or they'd be partying down there to stay out of the eye of the sheriff. That's what we heard. It's a beautiful adobe stucco and wood ceilings and wood rafters. And then, as Mike said, on the property over the years, they developed the outbuildings, which are 42 casitas, little individual stucco houses, and your rooms have beehive fireplaces and Western furniture, beautiful ceilings, incredible landscaping, right? The gardens were lovely, bougainvillea and cactus, and just really, really pretty. A top shelf restaurant, this Lon's, little spa.
Great bar.
Yeah, great bar, pools, all of that. So,
and some nice, I mean, the key that made this such a good pick for this group, because there were, 24, 25 of us?
That's right.
Yeah. Was they had meeting space, quite convertible meeting space. And we actually spent our days in Lyons, the owner's library. But it was really beautiful, rustic, the original floors. And then we had a dining space right adjacent to us so that we could kind of have our meals either there or we could go outside. The weather was...
Actually, the bookcases opened, right? What looked like a wall of bookcases opened, and they were doors to the dining room next door. That was kind of cute. Beautiful outdoor space filled with birds and trees, and lovely.
But it's not inexpensive. I wouldn't say it's like over the top expensive, but if you're planning a executive retreat, this is a place, it couldn't hold much more than 25 people. That's kind of, I would say, the upper end of it. But this would be a great place. I would certainly recommend for a 2-3 day retreat where you want to get your team together and learn more about them and do some work.
Really lovely service, lovely property. The restaurant attracts a local clientele. There's a big Sunday brunch there. The food was really great. Very pretty place. And we had about half the place. So there were another 20 units, another 20 casitas beyond what we had. So the selection of the place, and I shouldn't misspeak. I didn't find it. I selected it. It was found by our event team at MGME, our event company. They started with a list of 30 places, and we whittled down and whittled down and whittled down all over the country until we finally selected this. But beyond the selection of the hotel and our own work that we were doing on those days that we were in workshops, it's really important to me when we do events, because we're in the travel business, that we include a real sense of place. I have no interest personally in going to a big hotel and sitting in a ballroom for days. And I have no interest professionally in that either, because I want my team to know about Phoenix, about Scottsdale, about the Paradise Valley. If we're going to be there, I want us to learn about it and carry that back with us so we can help travelers and customers. So we did get off property and do a couple of interesting things. One is we went to Taliesin West. And if any of you are architecture buffs, you will know that is the winter home and architecture school of Frank Lloyd Wright, who was arguably the greatest architect of the 20th century. And he built Taliesin from a camp with, canvas tents to an incredible series of structures, such original, beautiful architecture, lying low in the desert, made of the materials from the desert, relating to the nearby mountains, and just spectacular to walk through, in my opinion. And I am an architecture buff, but so we did a little tour of Taliesin West, and everybody was oohing and eyeing, and then we went from there to, well, first of all, Mike, what was your impression? Was that your first time to Taliesin?
It was, and it was, it was interesting. I'm glad I did it. It was a good experience, and I did learn a lot more about Frank Lloyd Wright and his design, and about the way he went about design as well. So, there was a little bit of a mixed message from the group, though, to be fair.
Yeah, not everyone is enlightened. But that's fine. I still think that everyone who went there will talk about it and tell people about it. I am certain. And then we went to satisfy another kind of interest. We went out to the Desert Wildlife Conservation Center, way out in the boonies, in the desert. And this is a facility where they take in animals who have been involved in accidents, animals who were illegally kept as pets, wild local animals kept as pets, and for other reasons, they wind up at the conservation center, and they've wandered out of their habitat, and they get rehabilitated, and whenever possible, they get returned to the wild. And so it's really noble work. I was very happy to support it. We got to walk around and see javelinas and coyotes and the endangered Mexican gray wolf, pumas, mountain lions, bears, all kinds of things I didn't really know what they were. We got in the middle of all these coyotes who started howling like crazy. That was quite an experience. And we adopted some Mexican gray wolves, the company did, and we're paying for their care, or subsidizing their care for the year. So it felt good. It was interesting to see local animals that we don't have where I come from and where others came from. And felt good to support this kind of work, and gave us a real view of the desert, right? And what this wildlife is like.
Really authentic experience. So you're going somewhere. The guides taught us about what it is that they do and the service that they're providing to the community, as well as to the animals. And then we got to see some animals, which was really intriguing to everyone. I think everybody really enjoyed seeing animals. I'd never seen a wolf up close or a coyote. I hear them, but I've never seen them. So it was great, really enjoyable, and for a good cause too.
And a javelina is something that, we don't have where most of us live, but it's a bit like a warthog. That's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah.
They smell to high heaven, though. Ooh.
That's
anyway.
Yeah.
We did have a champagne toast when we adopted the wolves, and the toast was with Gruet sparkling wine. Gruet is a family from the Champagne region of France for hundreds of years. And in the 70s, they came over to New Mexico, and they have a winery and vineyards outside of Albuquerque and up in Taos on the mountain. And Gruet is actually a delicious sparkling wine, something I knew about before, but it's because we were in the desert Southwest, we had an interesting sparkling wine from there. Again, furthering this idea of what we like to talk about at No Tourists Allowed, not being a tourist, but actually getting deep into the culture of the place that we're visiting. We went on to have dinner one night at the Arizona Biltmore, a legendary hotel from the beginning of the 20th century, designed at least in part by Frank Lloyd Wright. He was the advisor on the design of the Arizona Biltmore famously. And it is probably the most important hotel in all of Arizona, very well known in our business. And it was quite beautiful, quite stunning. Had a lovely dinner outside, but we also spent some time in what's called the Mystery Room, a former speakeasy hidden deep inside the hotel with Frank Lloyd Wright's incredible architecture and design in the room. And it is the place where a bartender invented the tequila sunrise. So we had the original tequila sunrise recipe in the Mystery Room at the Arizona Biltmore.
I got to tell you that the food there, it was again, about 25 of us. We were seated outside. They had, at night in the desert, as many of you will know, it gets cool. And so they had heaters and blankets and so forth, but it was very pleasant. And they brought, regional food in and served it family style on the table. And the food that's probably the best meal I had the month of November.
Yeah, it was very good. I agree.
Really, really good.
And then the next night we had dinner at a local restaurant in Scottsdale called FNB. F is in Frank, N is in Nancy, B is in Bob, right? FNB. And there too, it was sort of, the menu changes every day there. So the night that we were there, it was kind of Mediterranean food with flavored hummus and some, it looked like Italian influenced dishes, Middle Eastern influenced dishes. The food was quite good. But what I really loved about that dinner was we selected 2 Arizona wines, a Viognier, which is a very fragrant Chardonnay type wine, but with lots of spice and floral notes to it, and an Italian grape. I can never quite get it. Agnolenco, something like that. And I've had that wine before from Italy. In this case, it's grown in Arizona. Anyway, the wines were a big hit. They were delicious, both of them. So, interesting to know that there's great wine from Arizona. So, look, we're telling you all this because I want you to know that we walk the talk, right?
Practice what we preach.
Yeah, exactly. So we made this all about Arizona, all about the desert Southwest, not touristy at all, but we really got a sense of the culture and the beauty of this part of the country. And as a consequence, I think, Mike and I had a great time. Everyone had a great time. We would highly recommend these restaurants, these hotels. I mean, really great.
Yeah. Excellent experience. I went from there on to see my son in San Diego. So He is in the Navy and he's stationed out there. And he and I had like 2 days of tacos. It was it was a taco. We both like tacos, and he
Fish
took me around.
tacos. I like fish tacos out there.
Yeah, we had fish tacos and all kinds. So had a great time there, and then flew from there to Pittsburgh to see Dave Matthews. I've never seen him, so flew straight to Pittsburgh and
More concert travel.
Yep. And I had my daughter. I flew her up, and she met me. We saw the concert and left out the next morning to come back home for 36 hours, and then I went back to Phoenix for this Focusrite thing. So glad to be home for a little while. And you were gone after the executive retreat too, right? You were in.
I was, but just down to Fort Lauderdale in Florida for an advisory board meeting at a Conrad hotel. So we talked about JW Marriott being the luxury end for Marriott. Conrad is the luxury brand for the Hilton Hotels group. And there is a beautiful Conrad on the beach, on the strip in Fort Lauderdale. Spectacular. It was originally built as condominiums and never made it to the market, and instead was turned into a hotel. So they are residence style suites. It's an all suite property. And I had an obscene suite overlooking the beach with, full kitchen and living rooms and several bathrooms. And it was just me. That's always crazy when in fact, I'm going to open this up. I need people to apply to become, I don't know, traveling assistant or companion for me, because I get these great accommodations, and it's just me, Mike. This is going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, that's up
there. Anyway, beautiful property, great food, lovely venues and service, and you just walk right onto the beach, walk up and down the strip in Fort Lauderdale. So it was lovely, but not at all as interesting a place to visit as the Arizona trip.
One thing I want to just let our listeners know that over the holidays, we're going to have kind of sporadic posting of the podcast. We've got more personal time off. So it'll be a little sporadic in December and maybe early January, but we will still bring you some content, and then we'll also get cranked back up, kind of mid-January on more of a consistent basis. So just a little heads up there.
So we are heading deeper into the holiday season, Mike, but we'll be here next week.
Sporadically? We'll be here sporadically.
I'm not so sure that anyone will notice the difference, because we're a little sporadic, but that's the charm of No Tourists Allowed.
And we'd love to hear from you guys too. We really do relish your feedback, and I've ran into some people at Focusrite who said thanks so much for doing the podcast. We really enjoy it. And then I've ran into some other people locally who've said the same thing. So we really do appreciate your being a faithful listener, but we also, or watcher, if you're watching it on a YouTube channel, but we also like to hear from you. So please provide your feedback, and you can just go to notouristallowed.com, and there's a feedback loop there where you can share, if there's topics you want us to cover, or if you think there might be some guests that might be interested or interesting to have on board, we would, certainly review those. But we'd love to have your feedback, and we really do appreciate your support.
Yeah. And if we've said something in a discussion on a podcast like today's, and you felt the urge to jump in and want to contribute a thought or challenge us on a point, you can always do it by going to the website, or even by watching us on YouTube. You could comment right there on the YouTube video, right? And even get into a conversation with our other listeners, other people who follow the podcast. So anyhow, we crave that interaction with you. But I agree, I do run into people all the time who surprise me and say, I listened to your podcast, I thought this was great or that was great. So All right, everyone, we will see you next time. And until then, thank you for joining No Tourists Allowed.
Goodbye.